All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the Astrology and World Events 2-day virtual summit, in which we're exploring some of the challenges and the opportunities that have come up for us this year. And this event now, or rather this panel discussion that we're going to have, is one where we're going to be diving a little bit more deeply into the astrology of tomorrow, because we all are quite familiar with what's been going on in 2020 within all of our lives. But this evening, we're going to have a bit of a discussion amongst these amazing astrologers who are here with me about where exactly are we going to be moving towards in the future after having gone through all of this wonderful and transformational energy of 2020. And I'm going to introduce our panelists and tell you just where you could find them on social media so that you can stay in the loop with their wonderful work. So we have here, you're all my sisters, so I don't know, you're all family. But we have in the upper left-hand corner, Ms. Kirah Tabourn, and you can find Kirah over on IG at Astrology, as well as Twitter at @theastrology_ and theastrology.com. Kirah, did I get everything?
You got it. Perfect.
Awesome sauce. And Kirah, you recently started a podcast as well. How can we tune into that?
Yeah, the podcast is called The Astrology Show. And you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Put the videos on YouTube as well. So yeah, The Astrology Show.
Awesome sauce. And right down below Kirah, we have Ms. Vanessa Montgomery. Hey, Vanessa.
Oh, have I got this on? Yes. Hey, how are you? Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming and joining our discussion.
Awesome. And Vanessa, you can be found over at astroallstars.com and also on Instagram at astro_allstars, and that's with a Z. I'm going to type that down in the comment box so that you all can find these amazing points of contact. And Vanessa, you also started a podcast recently, yes?
Yes. So Tony was my debut interview. It's going to be more interviews, some of me chatting, and just once a month with a classic sign. So obviously Tony was representing Virgo. And so keep an eye out on that. I've seen Kirah, you've been going for it. There's lots going on there. I'm going to be a little bit slower, but yeah, we'll get that. And Stormie also. Oh, and also Mychal, you've got heaps coming out.
Yep. Gotta keep it rolling because 'tis the season. All right, and Vanessa, where can we find your podcast?
So it's called the Astro All Stars podcast. On Apple iTunes is probably the best place.
Awesome sauce. So I'll put that down below as well. And last but not least is my dear Taurian sister, who definitely brought snacks, as is to be expected, Ms. Stormie Grace. Hey, Stormie, how are you?
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for being here, Stormie. And Stormie, you can be found over on Twitter and Instagram at Stormie Grace, and on YouTube at Stormie Grace, where you do wonderful stuff there. And I'm going to put that down below as well.
Yep, and I actually put everything over there to help you out. Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, Twitter. It's all listed right over there for you in the comment box.
Awesome sauce. Awesome. All right. So this evening, we're going to be diving into our panel discussion on dreaming the future. And I'm really excited. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to be going into this discussion, specifically because with all that's been going on this year, it really feels as if some group of people need to really be holding this space together to actually dream the future alive. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely.
Yeah. Here for it.
Here for it. I love it.
Awesome sauce. So we have a couple questions this evening, and people, if you want to send your questions as well, please feel free to type your questions down below in the Q&A section, and I'm going to see how best we can interweave those questions into the greater body of our discussion this evening. Now, the very first question that we have going in, and I'm going to start by handing this over to Kirah, and then we're going to move down to Stormie and then over to Vanessa, is based on the astrology of 2020 and all that's unfolded as a result of that astrology. How do you think we've been energetically prepared for the shifts that are coming up in 2021 and beyond?
Okay, such a big question. I guess going back to 2019, the way that I was sort of seeing 2020 unfold was as this sort of like 366-day energetic portal that we just all had to move through. And yeah, I think the way, seeing that, I saw the multiple conjunctions of the outer planets, and then the retrogrades of both Venus and Mars. And just that we didn't really, I could see there wasn't really much of like a break at any point in the year. And then like multiple eclipses as well. So yeah, I think what this year has sort of allowed for is this immense sense of pause and like reconfiguration. And I don't think we're like done with that until the end of the year, probably until the full moon at the end of the year. But yeah, I think we've been able to have this moment of just stop, pause. Pause is like my like word for 2020, I think. Partly because that's what came to me during my Saturn return earlier this year. It just felt like this huge moment of just stop moving, stop trying to push forward. And yeah, I think the way that 2020 is preparing us for 2021 and beyond is just giving us that moment and that time to just really just stop and think about, not just everything that's happened this year, but everything that's been happening for the past couple decades. And you could even say for the past 200 years, and really looking at how we are moving individually, how we're moving as a society, how we're moving within our communities. And it's really giving us this opportunity to really reassess on this like primal cellular level. Because yeah, I mean, 2021 doesn't look like 2020. It does in some ways, but it's not as much of a contraction as 2020 has been. And so there's almost that sense of like, this year has been such a major contraction where we've had to go inward in ways that I don't think many of us expected. And there's almost that sense of like when you pull the arrow back, like the farther back you pull it, the farther it's gonna fly. And I think that with that, we have the opportunity to really lean into the contraction. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.
All right. Thank you very much, Kirah. Now, going down to Stormie Grace, how do you feel the situation and the astral weather of 2020 has shifted us or prepared us energetically to interact with the astrology of 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I have much of the same perspective that many people have, that we really were on pause. The earth was on pause, getting its life together for a minute and reflecting what's been going on. So as we've been here in 2020, though, in this space where everybody, in whatever form or fashion it's been, has been pushed back in and pushed into home, whether that be the home of the personhood or our physical homes, whatever that looks like. I think the evaluations that have happened from our hygiene to our beliefs and the questions of why do I believe what I believe? Why am I doing what I'm doing? All of those things in 2020, we've had to have them to kind of have this crushing fall a little bit to make it, a solid enough place to build new foundation as we get into 2021. I think it would have been really hard and impossible, because everything in the right timing, to move into 2021 and build a new world on sand. Foundation that was just sand. So everything in right timing. I think 2020 got us very much so uncomfortable and prepared and humbled in some ways to be able to move into 2021 and start to build. And I say start to build, because I think 2021 is the start to build something else globally that we'd like to see all together. But I also have a lot of hope for 2021. At the beginning of 2020, I was like, yay, 2021. And it's not just because I wanted it to be over, but because truly understanding that place where we had to shut down and some things had to be brought fully to light. And it's not just, not just here in the United States or not just in Australia. Within ourselves, I think there's some things when we've been so busy and moving around and going that, we haven't had a chance to really stop and see it. And also celebrate the progress that we have made, to take also the positive and take what is still working in the structures that we found this year and continue to allow those to advance in 2021. And we've got plenty of astro signatures throughout the year that talk about the success of that being able to happen. We're going to have a year where we've got our, we've got fixed signs back on the table. And that is brilliant because we're going to crystallize some things down. That's a big deal, but we are sure going to fight to get them in there. Fixed signs are stubborn. They do not let go easily, especially Uranus and Taurus, where Taurus is like, you can just pry this from my cold, dead hands before I give it out. So sometimes it needs a little shakeup. So I think that we have plenty of astrological signatures as we move through the year, all coming in perfect timing. We are prepared for that. We have all of the tools that we need. Now we just have to dip really into that Neptune, Pisces, Jupiter coming back with Neptune motion to create something we've never seen before. And I'll say this and shut up. We are not the first generation of people to create something that we've never seen before. Right? We're not the first ones to do that. So we also have the brilliance of our elders and our histories to look back to and say, well, what happened when they tried it? So, okay, thanks.
Awesome. Awesome sauce, Stormie. And now over to you, Vanessa. Where are we now? How do you feel is preparing us for where we're going?
Yeah, it's a real change of the guard, isn't it, coming? Like, it's amazing. I think what I wanted to say before even going into the astrology, I was just thinking about at the end of the day, I know the way I use astrology is I can sense into things and I can get a feeling for myself. And then knowing astrology, it just seems to validate it and help me basically trust myself. At the end of the day, and then you understand the astrology. I'm sure we all have a sense of that. So I think if you just try to go into the astrology without that intuitive guidance, it's really can get a bit obsessive or clutching at something because it's empty, because you're not using your right side of your brain as well. So it's really handling it like that. So, and I think that, there's as a collective, and then there's, we all, like, some people have had an amazing year. Some people have had, such a bad year. And it's really, if you've been following your vibe, not what you should do or what's expected, you're most likely to be in a much better position now, which is like how I feel about that. I've had people say, what are you doing? I don't understand sort of the way I navigate life. So I don't really follow the shoulds as much. So yeah, it's just really interesting. And then looking at clients that I've had a lot of younger people that were doing the short and they're studying what they're meant to be studying, and then they've had to have this big pause. So what do you do when you're at home? You start drawing and illustrating and reading and discovering all these parts of yourself that maybe you thought weren't a viable option for career, and they've realized they really enjoy it as much as they love their study and maybe something more sciencey, and they're actually going to give it a go, because now we've got Instagram. Artists can actually build a business through that without any middle person. So I've seen that as a massive a word I've seen a lot being used is pivot. So I think it's just been this massive pivot point, stopping at this threshold, pivoting and going, actually, I'm going to do that. This is sort of crumbling anyway. Why hold on to it? And I think young people have less invested. They haven't built this thing that they've invested in this old way. So in a much better position to do that pivot and just, race off in a new direction. So I see that as something that this year's really brought in and prepared us for. And apart from that, that's kind of my main take on it, actually. And the other thing is to really remember, there's been divisiveness and then unity, and really be clear on what position you're taking every time. Are you being divisive, or are you coming in and finding where we intersect and actually what's best for this person and how that's actually best for you too, if that happens. You know, there's been so much rising already through the last couple of years, and then just, you know, came to a point now ready to kind of clear the decks and start anew and start afresh in a much better way. That's what I'll say. Back to you. What about you? You're entering this conversation too, aren't you, Mychal?
Well, I wasn't planning to, but.
Oh, really?
But what I find really interesting about what the three of you have reflected is this fact that 2020 has, in lots of ways, been this threshold experience for us. And I know that Kirah mentioned it, and she said that it felt like a pause. And you, Vanessa, you said it's this threshold thing about looking back and seeing what's gone before. And you, Stormie, have also spoken about the newness that we're stepping into and how we're being charged at this moment to create something new that hasn't been done before, but that we're not the first ones to have done that. And I really love this feeling, because at the threshold, it brings up all of the feelings. It's emotional and it's joyful, but it's also frightening and it's scary, and it brings up all of the feelings because it's essentially challenging the comfort of the things that we had before. And yeah, I mean, a lot of us have been holding our breath, I think, but as we move forward towards 2021, I love this concept of dreaming a new future, because we are all poised essentially within ourselves, within our astrology, and also within our lives to really create a new future based on the knowledge that we have, that probably our ancestors didn't have when they were also faced with the same situations. So I'm loving it. All right, now next question that we're going to dive into, and Vanessa, I'm going to hand it back over to you, and then Kirah, and then Stormie, and we'll switch it up in that manner. And please, people, if you have any questions that you would like us to rope in, please also feel free to drop them down below. Now, the next question is, we have come, well, we're still going through it, but we're moving through this very Capricorn-y sort of energy, not sort of, it is a very Capricorn energy that we're passing through collectively. And we're moving into something that is, for all intents and purposes, something that is radically different from that Capricorn empire that we're stepping out of. What do you feel is the one difference between these two energies that represents where we've come from and where we're going, Vanessa?
Okay, so yeah, I was actually just thinking about all the outer planets being in, there's no air. Like, it's been quite an earth abundant few years, actually, particularly this year. And I've been writing the horoscopes for Glamour now for just over a year. So I sort of check the elemental balance for each week as well, and sometimes just no air. So it's going to be such a different vibe. Like, I think with the Capricorn, Stormie, you were saying as well, like looking back, that's what I've been thinking about Capricorn too. It's just so about tradition and how's it been done in the past? What can we learn from that? That's the positive side of it. Looking back, I've been looking back into like not just the myths because they inform astrology, the astrology we use so much from Greece and Rome, but what about the myths before that? Because they were quite patriarchal. So back more, and it's completely different. So I've been loving just and realizing like, oh, it's a Capricorn vibe. Of course I'm doing that. So I'm just going to go with it even more. And of course, Aquarius is like not just it's like beyond the future. It's so future. So they're quite opposite in a lot of ways. I don't do traditional astrology. So no, Kirah, you're stronger on that with Saturn being a ruler of both. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. I won't speak on that because I don't really know enough about it, but yeah, it's just such a futuristic vibe. It's science. I guess the Capricorn and the earth as well. Like I'm looking at there's earth, Chiron's in fire if you use it. Earth, water, Capricorn, earth. So then it's just going to be air with some water. So yeah, I think, there's been building of infrastructure. The whole world is kind of like infrastructured to the gills now. Like, we've got supply chains coming from all over, going all over. It's crazy and it's just so efficient. So I think going into Aquarius will be, well, how is this serving us? In the positive, how is this serving us? What's everyone's place in it? How are those people, like that social awareness that are part of that supply chain? Because as we know, it's not great for a lot of people. And I just see it as like a real economic imbalance going on. So I'm hoping that is one of the biggest things actually that get addressed, and there's a bit more egalitarian awareness, and people start, you know, not just buy things off Amazon that comes from wherever because it's cheap, which we're all perpetuating that whole thing by doing that and not taking any responsibility whatsoever. So I think with looking into blockchain, actually, I think that's where things are really going, and a lot of potential for that. You can actually, and there's companies that you can actually link back the thing that you buy. You can see the whole chain and exactly where it comes from. So that's going to make those suppliers and factories, etc., have to be more transparent, because you can find out at the click, you know, of a button. And I think a lot more people want to be aware. It's just we haven't had the access to the information to really know how. So that's a big one. And I think also, yeah, knowledge and schools with that air coming in, higher knowledge. Like I think Tony's really setting himself up well with something called Astrology University. Like astrology and further education is so Aquarian. Like what we're doing here is so Aquarian. So I feel like we're already sort of like seeing the rays coming over the horizon by being here. I'm really excited about that. And the third thing I mention is really so much, the communal aspect. I've got North Node in Aquarius and Aquarius on my midheaven, and it's like always been my dream, the communal thing. And again, with this, it's a shared profit, equal business. You know, everyone has a part in it. Everyone, no matter what you do, like unlike the opposite Leo, no matter, everyone has their part and it's equal. Even if that one did do more and that one did less, it's like what you bring, you know, that's what you bring. And, you know, what you put in, you get out. And I think it really encourages people to work together, and you can obviously create a lot more if you do that. So I'm really excited about that. And with the Taurus in Uranus as well, like that group, like all semi-communal living, pooling resources, because things are so expensive. I'm always like, well, there's lots of single mums. Why don't single mums, like women, get together, like pool your resources? You can imagine being alone versus like 10 people like pooling that up. And that's been another sort of dream of mine forever. Like, let's all live together, but still have our own space. So yeah. And I think the thing is like, you can like embrace it and make the most out of it, or you can sort of go, no, I don't want to do that, but you're going to suffer by not. It's still our choice. You know, there's a vibe of where we're going. There's archetypes that are going to be happening, but the future's unwritten at the same time. You can sort of make it happen within that sort of frame. So that's my thoughts.
Awesome, Vanessa. Now, Kirah, same question. Capricorn energy versus Aquarius energy. How do you feel this shift is playing out archetypally, and how do you think we're going to personalize this shifting from Capricorn into Aquarius?
Yeah, so I think I'll start by talking about Saturn as the ruler of both signs. And yeah, I got this from Austin Coppock originally, and it just made everything make a lot of sense to me. So hopefully it helps with a lot of other people. So, you know, Saturn as the ruler of both signs can be seen as a wall. Sorry, there's a dog outside of my door. Got distracted. So yeah, Saturn can be seen as the wall, the structure that divides what's inside and what's outside. And Capricorn would be considered everything that's inside of that wall. So that's the established structures, the established norms, the traditions, everything that's, accepted within those walls. Aquarius would therefore be everything that's outside of the wall. And oftentimes it's like outside looking in. So you can think of the exile, or even people who don't fit in the mold of the established structures. And the thing about Aquarius is, well, should I go here first? Sorry, talking to myself. Yeah, so I guess I'll just say, like, the thing that really strikes me about the difference between Capricorn and Aquarius is, one, Capricorn to me is so much about structure. It's a physical, it's an earth sign. So we're talking about things that are physical and real and established. And yeah, I mean, we're talking about the structures that be. Aquarius is an air sign, and air signs are social. So we're often talking about societal systems. I think of systems when I think of Aquarius. And yeah, the difference between like structures and systems might not seem all that different, but there is a difference there. And the thing about Aquarius, I think, that strikes me is that they have perspective. So Aquarius archetype is about perspective in a lot of ways. You can think of it as perspective from the from like high up in the clouds, which is also very Aquarius, like fixed air would be like the atmosphere. You can also think of it as being in the margins. And I think that Aquarius as an archetype has this very intimate relationship with marginality. And if you picture a circle, right, and you're on the very far edges of the circle, your back's up against the wall, so therefore you're on the margins, right? You can see everything else that's happening in the circle. You have a really good perspective of what's going on. Whereas like if you're in the middle, you can't really see what's behind you. You have a more limited point of view. So Aquarius being positioned on the margins has this perspective of the way that the system is working and the ways that the systems aren't working. So Aquarius can see, you know, this might be benefiting those people in the middle, but it's not benefiting my friends over here on the outside. And so I think with this shift from Capricorn to Aquarius, right now we're getting these like destructions of the established norms and the established structures. But with Aquarius, I think we can use that perspective and see, okay, these are the ways that the systems that we've had just aren't serving everyone. And I think Aquarius really wants to level the playing field and make, you know, Aquarius is like the 99% versus the 1%, which would be like Leo, the royal class. So yeah, I think with this shift, we'll get a greater perspective on how our societal systems are failing people. We're already kind of getting that, but with that, I think we'll also get this, this innovation and this need and desire from many people to make things work for everyone and not just some people, making sure that we're taking care of those that are on the margins and bringing them inside. So yeah, there's that. What else was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, the other thing, I guess, something that Vanessa brought up too, that really struck me around the time that Saturn was in Aquarius this year was how much we started to rely on our communities and seeing things like community bail funds and, you know, more and more GoFundMes. And I mean, that's been a thing for a while, but especially like regarding COVID and, you know, ways that affected people on a personal level, the ways that communities rallied behind the people that are in their communities was really striking to me, and really spoke to the Aquarian nature of everything. And sort of like what Vanessa was saying in terms of like, you know, why don't mothers get together and pool their resources? I think the whole, like the phrase, it takes a village is going to be like a really, you know, prominent theme, that, you know, and with things like COVID and pandemics, like if you're in a small community of people and you can band together with those people and pool your resources, you're going to be much more, you're going to feel safer and more protected within that community than maybe you would just on your own having to rely on the government. That's I think going to be a really huge thing with the shift from Capricorn to Aquarius, is like less reliance on the government and the established structures, and more reliance on our communities and the people that, the people that we're sharing space with. So yeah, that's something that really struck me about like the Aquarius Capricorn dynamic. It's like, are we putting our faith and our trust into these established structures that, are being, with Pluto there, are being like, we're being shown the underbelly of all of that, and being shown the corruption and the ways that they're just, a lot of times, like, we're built off of nothing, or actually just a farce. So are we going to put our trust and our faith and our reliance on that, or on the people that we know and that we love and that can form support systems? Yeah, I guess that's what I have for you.
Awesome sauce, Kirah. Now handing that same question over to Stormie. From Capricorn to Aquarius, two things that seem quite distinct. How do you feel this movement into Aquarius is going to be impactful on all of us?
Yeah, well, I definitely think just moving into the vibration of air is going to be just a lot of thought, a lot of ideas. But I think about the initial kind of surge that we felt of that energy when Saturn dipped into Aquarius this year. And one of the biggest things that we felt was the tech need. And I love it when Saturn comes into a new sign. He essentially comes in and says, here's what's wrong. Let's fix it, because I would like to raise the vibration of this before I leave. It's a wonderfully maturing kind of energy, and it allows us to face the fears or the unknowns that we didn't, or that we had in that area that maybe we didn't even know were there. So as Saturn came into the energy of Aquarius, I like to think about how we all got thrown online and into this Zoom world. And Zoom, as a company, they were over there living their best life, thinking they had a really good product. Right? And they built that to hold what, maybe 10 million people, maybe, that was pushing that for them. And Saturn came into Aquarius, and they immediately were inundated with this planet. And they saw that they didn't have the structure they needed to be a part of what's next. So Zoom had problems. They had problems. We saw them. There was hacking. There was everything else. And just as quickly, they became very responsible, very transparent for finding the solutions. And I think that in our lives, we each got that little shock somewhere, which is like, even at the level of tech, where am I not prepared? At the level of our thinking, where am I not prepared for what's next? So it's that little sizzle we got, which was a nice preview for as Saturn comes for its stay, for us to see where we're going to work, and where we also need to firm up those particular areas. I think about the fact too that here coming in 2021, the internet is going to have a Saturn return. So we're going to get into this space of we're going to grow up. The internet is going to grow up. And this is important because this is coming forward with us. When we saw it the first time, it connected people in a way that was completely different than anything we had experienced. We talk about community. It created a reach that we've never seen before, and so now that we're here and this is getting ready to become kind of standard fare in our world, it also opens up those airy qualities of the mind. Maybe I do want to learn Korean, and I'm actually going to learn it from a Korean teacher because I have the access to that person now. It just changes the value, I think, of community, but we will have to get some security going in there in all types of ways, realms, and everything else. So I think a fair amount about that particular portion. And because Aquarius is fixed, we are trying to ground this down into the new reality. We're not looking to have it be something that lasts 2 years. We're like, hey, let's make this thing serious. And someone asked a question, and I thought that this was really great, so I want to address it. They said, moving from Capricorn, which we give it this heavy vibe, but Capricorn's a feminine energy. Right? Capricorn is a feminine energy. And if you think about some of the mythology behind Capricorn and the little sea goat not being able to control destiny and time and keep the children safe, that's kind of what we're coming from, the reality that it just can't stay what it is. And so we've got to do something else. But Saturn gets us in the position in Capricorn to feel the fear and look at the structures, see what's here or not. But Aquarius gives us the way forward of what to build next. Because if you know the mythology of Aquarius, Aquarius had a different name at the time, but was over there, got discovered by Zeus. Zeus was like, oh, I like you. You're going to be my water bearer for life. And eventually Aquarius had enough and poured out all the drinks. And Zeus, in a moment of clarity, was like, I was kind of a jerk. It makes sense you want to be free, you know? And that's the Aquarian vibes. When we're looking for this breakout freedom in the collective global consciousness, I think that's coming, it is going to be from our personal lives to the things that we do. Where do I want to be free? Where do we want to be free? And where can we be free enough that freedom doesn't mean we squish each other? It's the individual thing that we add to the whole. So I think that's going to be a pretty prevalent theme that we see as we travel through this Aquarian energy, but we need it. Saturn in Capricorn does not have the innovative capacity that Aquarius does, and that doesn't make it wrong. Everybody's got their evolutionary potential, and Capricorn is typically not over there innovating. It's managing, it's securing, and that's okay. So we say thank you to the Capricorn energies as it's blown on, and welcome in where the lessons are coming next. And I'll tell you this too, I think it is an incredible, incredible time for the United States. We've got an Aquarian moon if you're using the Sibley chart, and we have got to find here what makes us free, what makes us us on that world stage out there, what makes us us as we're here in this little body, what's our thing that we add to the global home as well. So it's a big time. It is a big time. And if any of the countries and continents are making big decisions, it does impact the rest of them. So there is no way that a single decision I think gets made this year globally or personally that doesn't impact something bigger. So.
Amazing, Stormie, and amazing everyone. What I personally feel about the shift from Capricorn into Aquarius is that Capricorn is that part of Saturn that tells us what we should be, what things should be. And in so being that part, it essentially sets up the boundaries and our relationships with those boundaries, because that concept of should is one based on structure. And that structured reality is one based on boundaries. But Aquarius gives us this internal intimation about what things can be. And I think that it's this spark of possibility in Aquarius that is the thing that makes us want to align it with Uranus, because it's this point of expansion from that Capricorn rules and the shoulds that went before into a newer, more expansive reality of how can we be versus the things that we've been told by our ancestors, by our past. How can we show up? And I hear all of you saying that as we move forward, we're being asked to show up in a different way. And that showing up has to do with community. And that showing up has to do with being our sister and our brother's keeper. And that showing up has to do with building a new world different from the one that we're leaving behind. And I'm really excited about that. And I'm excited to hear each and every one of you reflect that. Now, before we go into the final question that we have on our list, I do want to take a moment to ask one of the questions that came up that I think is a really relevant question based on where it is we are right now. And anyone can take this up if you like. But this is from Bonita Oliver, who's asking, what do you think will be the astrological signal for the illusion of racial division leaving our consciousness? So, put it on the floor.
Yeah, I definitely think it's Saturn and Uranus, but I also think that Jupiter coming together with Neptune will be a little bit of a challenging time for us, because I don't think we give it enough cred, but Jupiter and Pisces can both be quite judgmental, right? And they can both believe that they have the right ideas of a very great whole. So there will be some ideas that I think we're going to have to work out. And that's kind of hard to see. What's the reality of my thinking? Is it on or is it off track? So I think that's something that creates this kind of illusionary space a little bit. But when Saturn and Uranus are running into each other, right? These are changes that we maybe don't want. It's tension we maybe don't want. But if we resist it, there is definitely issue. Now, I was laughing with my mentor before because Saturn rules Aquarius, right? Uranus rules Aquarius. So the only singleton here is poor little Taurus over there being like, I have got my life so shaken up over here, right? And these things that we have done across our globe where we have been very torn in them in times where we grounded down and we traded comfort for character building. Now we're going to have those shaken out, and some of that's going to be race, some of that's going to be culture, some of that'll be language things, some of these things will be, you know, social, political, financial. All of those things I think get meshed in there, but it's the pathway through that I think we just have to walk to figure out, well, where is this delusional illusional? Where am I stepping into this place that I think Aquarian energy helps us get objective from, where it's more about my feelings versus the facts, right? Like, this post makes me feel this way, so it must be true, right? As opposed to what's the fact? Because, you know, if Aquarian energy, it's right up here. What's the facts? I just want the information, right? I want the big story and the truth. So I think that will help us with that illusion and division under all of our circumstances. But we are not going to go peacefully into the night. That's not 2021, I don't think at all. This is stubborn energy that we're going to have to make our way through. But you come here, right? Raise your vibration, find a more evolved path, step back when you're wrong, help where you can, those kinds of things.
Awesome sauce, Stormie. Does anyone else want to? We have a couple questions, so okay, go for it, Vanessa.
I'll just say briefly, it just makes me think again of division versus unity. You know, when you're confronted with something, are you sitting yourself on a part where you're othering someone in a certain way? Get clear on that. Maybe the Aquarius side is using that conceptual ability, using that detachment to be like, rather than get all like fired up about something and get dragged into some kerfuffle, you know, sit back. Actually, where is that striking me? What is that? Like, that's how I've navigated a lot of my life. Once I got conscious of that, is just like, hang on, what is it? Where did I even get that belief from? And when you realize where you got the belief from, usually you're like, oh yeah, it's not mine. You can have it, actually, especially if they're limiting. Like I would say, when I realized I was gay, I was in high school, but that's not right. Where did I get that idea from? Bogans generally. So, you know, because of that switch, as well as thinking about religion and God and things like Sagittarians like to think about in primary school, you know, I realized, where did I get that from? So I apply that to so many things when it strikes me, and that's how I present it to other people, and they're just like, oh yeah, you know, just that detachment. And I think there's obviously a big shadow side of Aquarian detachment, but that is a real gold part of it. And that's, Stormie, I agree, like that Saturn going into Uranus just like showed where we're going, you know. And I think most people, from what I've seen, want to get on board, and they do want that unity, but it's taking that charge out of things, that like the Leo part, like, but me, you know, and going into, where does it benefit us to be a collective? Because that's where we're going. Like, if you fight it, that's where we're really going to get the trouble. And I think if we don't unite and take the responsibility for that, and maybe that's that Saturn part of Aquarius, it'll be put on us in not a great way. And I think that's that clash that's possibly coming again. So yeah, team up.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of the other questions. And some people have been sending me private messages about everyone's social media handles. So I dropped them down below again, so you can find everyone, connect with them if you love what it is you're hearing here. Now, we have a question coming in from Lisa, who is asking, I wonder, how dramatic will that shift into air be? Will it be as jarring in 2021 as it has been in 2020, but with a flavor of air? So who wants to take that one on?
I can take that. I think it's not going to be necessarily as jarring as you might think, because I think we really started, we already kind of dipped our toes into this air era in the 80s when we had the first Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in an air sign in Libra. And so, you know, with that, we started to get more computers, and, you know, the internet came about a decade after that. So we're already kind of there. I think the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius in December is going to, it's marking like the official beginning. But I think, what was it? I don't know how many years. Back in the 80s, when this app happened, I think it was 82. I think that was the real true like beginning. Or at least that's when we started to, I don't think there's not really a lot of like cut and dry beginnings and endings when we're talking about eras. So I do think that it's not going to be as jarring as you might think. We also did have Saturn in Aquarius for a little over 3 months this year. And so that really did provide this like window into the next 2-3 years. So yeah, I mean, we start off the year in major air energy, especially January, February, when like all the planets start to move through Aquarius. And then we also have the North Node in Gemini. And I think that's definitely going to feel, I don't know what that's going to be about, but we'll probably feel it a lot then. And then again in May, June, when we get eclipses again and all that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that we're already sort of like the transition has already started a long time ago. And we're just kind of getting to like the more dense parts of it now, if that makes sense.
It definitely does, Kirah. Now, yes, yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I think it's not going to be as jarring in the sense like 2020 was in that we haven't seen it before. But for each of us, we have these Aquarian portions of our chart that are getting ready to get lit up. And the Aquarian energy by its nature is innovative and genius and brilliant and out of nowhere. And oh my God, what did that happen? You know? So for each of us, these ideas may come popping like lightning into us, or there could be situations that happen that allow us to see what we think about what's next. So in that way, it's like, is it going to be jarring? Well, maybe for you, it might be. If you never thought you thought about that, that might be a really interesting place to have this kind of evaluation of what this new air energy is bringing into your space. So I just want to point that out, because when Saturn changes signs and really sticks to stay, we find out the things we didn't know were there, what isn't working, what's really gold that we can bring to the top too. And Uranus is pure genius. When it pops in there, when it's that kind of energy, you usually just didn't see it coming because it's the lightning bolt you needed to adjust the rut. And Saturn will still do that in Aquarian energy, I think.
Okay, so we have a few, go for it, Vanessa.
I was wanting to say on this one, I love joining the conversation. Remember around the millennium 2000, there were quite a few planets in Aquarius. So I'm a bit older than you guys. So I remember as an adult, and I was studying at the time, and I was doing fashion. So I did have to sort of engage and look at what was around. So I really noticed. And yeah, it's not, I mean, Aquarius and Uranus are shock of the new, but it wasn't so shocking. But look at us now, it's 20 years after that. And that was the internet going, like, and people having mobile phones, and all of that went mass. Like, it came in 10 years, that's what you were talking about, Kirah. It came in then, but then we all got it by then. And it was a certain vibe. So if you look back at that vibe, that started to connect us with the information highway. Look where we are with that information now. It's sort of like disinformation. There's too much information. It's like, now we've got to learn to work with that, because we've just got sort of up leveled, and start regulating it, I think, which is that Saturn, because it's just going into Aquarius, like getting rules in there and sort of rules of play and some sort of structure, because it's creating those divisions in society, because Facebook has no law. Like, it's like the Wild West now. They're just running wild and creating a lot of havoc globally. So I think that will start to get regulated. I hope so. But yeah, look back at the vibe. It wasn't scary. It was actually quite exciting. It was interesting. It was very, the fashion was it went quite androgynous, actually, very streamlined. There was a lot of, metal, silver, utilitarian. I wasn't as into it because I like all the Leo gold and things, but it was very streamlined. So I think that's interesting, going in with the Pisces in Neptune in Pisces sort of fluidity. It'll just sort of amplify that and start bringing this more androgynous breakout of, I hope, roles. There's like non-gender specific language and things like that just starting to come in. I hope that really gets more traction, actually. Okay.
Great. Now, the final question that we're going to go into in this last 10 minutes that we have, so everyone gets about 3 minutes, is what do you think we can do as the astrological community to really step forward boldly into the future and be agents of change? How can our astrological practice assist us in creating a brighter tomorrow, not just for ourselves, but also for the larger communities that we serve? I'm going to hand that over to Stormie, then to Kirah, and then to Vanessa.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm a big fan. If you're doing astrology, like, just do astrology. That's a big deal. You know, learn right where you're at. And that is, as a practitioner in this field, that's something I'm going to tell people when they come to me. Just learn, plant, you know, grow where you're planted at the moment. And that's a big deal. But I also think on this side, as a practitioner in this field, all of us have to innovate. And whether that be that we innovate and we come to our next level of knowledge, or we come to our next level of practice where we're sharing and figuring out how to actually get the information out there while also bringing information in, I think that's a big responsibility. And we've seen some of it happen. You know, we have astrologers who've been practicing for decades, and they have written big, beautiful books. You know, they've done all of this stuff. And now, as Saturn dipped into this Aquarian energy, what they found out is, oh, well, wait a minute, we've got all these big, beautiful books. None of them are audiobooks. Oh my God, the contract wasn't even written with audiobook, because what was that at the time? You know, so the ability for the astrology industry and community to innovate, I think, is on us for sure. And I also, you know, with this business of inclusivity, I think it's important for us in the community to be widely inclusive, for sure, but to also, again, remember, right? You gotta do a little something to be here. That's really important, right? It's not because we're going to be inclusive doesn't mean you get a pass to just come hang out and do whatever. And that's a big thing, I think, personally, globally, in the astrology community as well. And the last thing I'll say is that some of the making astrology accessible, I think that as a student and a teacher, it's going to be a big year with Saturn being here, where we own where things have been accessible and we've simply not accessed them on our own, and to take responsibility for that side of it as well. So.
Awesome. Kirah?
Is it Vanessa's turn?
It's yours, Kirah. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I don't know if you guys can hear that cricket. Is it really loud?
It's a wonderful cricket.
I don't know if there's a cricket in here somewhere. It just started going off. So apologies for that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of bringing, I guess, the astrology community into the future, a couple things come to mind. I think we can do a lot to be more accessible. And that goes with both like pricing. So having accessible prices for your services, and that doesn't mean that you need to not charge what you think you're worth, but I think, seeing more astrologers do things like offering sliding scale readings for certain peoples, or for certain, marginalized communities, offering scholarships for your classes or your programs or your readings even. And again, that doesn't mean you have to do it for everyone, but, if you do one scholarship reading a month, something like that. And then also, I think when we're talking about accessibility, we have to talk about things like, once we're in person again, or even when we're not in person again, can we do things like have sign language interpreters at conferences? Can we do things like making sure that we have closed captioning on our videos? Can we provide transcripts afterwards? Things like that. Yeah, something that's come up for me in like my readings, I do only audio readings. I don't like to do video, but you know, I've had someone who was hard of hearing and needed to be able to read my lips. And so like things like that, like I think making sure our language shows that we are able to accommodate folks when need be. And when I mean language, I mean like on our websites and stuff. Um, and then what else? I mean, oh, like the astrology community is international, and I think that we can better reflect that by, you know, hosting things that are in different languages. And I think with conferences we often do have people that are international. I think just like I don't know what that looks like, but kind of like strengthening our international community and the ties that we have with folks internationally as well. Because it tends to be very Western centric, at least. And I would say probably US centric as well. We definitely, I mean, that's not completely the case, but there's obviously like really big communities in Australia and Canada and the UK as well. Yeah, that's really what comes to mind for me, is just like the accessibility piece. And I think just like, yeah, I guess I'm like, do I go there? No, I'm not going to go there. um, yeah, what was the full question?
Well, the last piece of the question is that if there's a place to go, go there.
What do you mean?
You
You mean what I was gonna say? I think I just wanted to note that like pay like I don't know how to say this, and I haven't thought about it the right way, but I just think that, you know, making sure maybe I'll put it this way, being transparent about, I guess, folks in the community being transparent with each other about, you know, pay and, and like, you know, if you're getting paid a certain amount to write for, you know, whatever publication, tell your friends that might not know how much they should be charging for things like that. I think we can just be better with, you know, we're not competing against each other. Like, we're a community. And so we can do better, I think, about like the sharing of information between us. Yeah. And I think also just like, we need more like mentorship. I think that there's just a lot of folks out there who are learning astrology by themselves and just don't really know where to go with it. Or folks that want to become professional astrologers but don't really know how the hell to even begin. And I don't really know what this looks like, but I think I just feel like we can open up a little bit more and like open our arms a little bit more to a lot of folks, especially younger folks, in particular Gen Z, because, you know, a lot of people just don't know. I didn't know. I had a couple of really great astrologers, like, you know, a lot of time reaching out to me to be like, hey, if you need help with this, let me know. And I think that happens a lot with people, but it would be cool to see something where we can make that information more readily accessible or something. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Awesome sauce, Kirah. Now, Vanessa, what do you think our astrological practice poises us to be able to do for the world as we move forward into 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, I think I like what you were saying, Kirah, about just a key word, inclusivity, in so many ways. How can we do it differently? We're going to Aquarius, the inclusivity. I guess the group, basically a group, everyone pays a little bit. It's affordable. It supports the astrologer. If they're mentoring, like now, like, yeah, for years, this was not a job description, but it is a viable job description now. That's a new thing. So, I mean, that's doing things differently. I've already been thinking about how can I put together something that talks about that. There's so many paths and it's so new. We are all doing this differently. All four of us now, there's not one path, there's many. So I think it's the hive mind as well. Like, and also, Kirah, what you were saying too, like have that transparency. Like I live at the Gold Coast and was before COVID a thriving music scene here, but because it's a fairly small place, all the musicians would check in with each other about what they're getting paid at each place, and it's really kept the bar high, so no one's undercutting, because if someone does, everyone's like, come on, hey, like value yourself, value us, let's, with the group, if we team up, and not as in like control each other, just like that information accessibility, we have so much more power, you know. And I think that that strength in numbers is the biggest thing that we've got going for us in terms of the Aquarius positive side. And remembering right now we have Jupiter is sextiling Neptune, so dreaming the future is, it's all about now. So for people and us, you know, journal, write it down, like set those intentions, open up and set it. Like you've got to dream it first, and that's also Capricorn, is planning. Like what's planning? You're thinking about what you want. So yeah, don't discount that. So I think I'm going with the inclusivity as well, the communal stuff. They're doing business in a more collective way and that shared way. I just think that I know I've got so much in the 7th and 8th. I perform better if I'm working sort of, I get something out of it, but it's mutual benefits. I'm working for you, so I can't drop the ball. If it's just me, I might maybe get distracted. But if I know I have to show up for you, I'm going to show up, but I also benefit. So that's that, I guess, that Leo Aquarius position. So doing business differently. How can you do it differently as a group? How can you really change things? I think from that capitalist sort of me, regardless of if I have to step on you, which I think Capricorn capitalism is so, it just brings out too much of the dark side of what we have. So personally, I'm completely over it now and ready for the new way. So yeah, that's what I think. And yeah, supporting, I guess, mentoring, how can that happen where you still can support yourself as well if you have that ability to do it? To me, I just keep thinking groups, like take on groups so that you're hitting more with your time. And again, if everyone pays a little bit, or yeah, that way, which we can do with the internet, thankfully.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Vanessa. And thank you so much, Stormie and Kirah, for coming together and holding this conversation about how we can dream a new future as we move forward into the future after having gone through such an interesting and such a transformational year. I definitely have learned a lot being in your presence. And I know from looking at our chat window that our listeners and viewers and other guests have also felt that exact same way. And I'm going to drop the information for everyone's contacts, everyone's social contacts down here again, as well as say it if you want to get in contact and see the amazing work that everyone here is doing. You can check out Kirah at The Astrology on IG and Twitter, or theastrology.com. Check out Stormie over at stormiegrace.com, and also on YouTube at Stormie Grace. And also check out Vanessa at Astro All Stars, at Astro_All Stars over on Instagram. I think we did it.
Awesome job.
This was super amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for being here. And also, definitely, we always have to make a major shout out for the Astrology University for continuing to put together programming like this so that all of us can come together and all of us can share in this virtual astrological space together, even when it is still a bit tricky in terms of coming together physically. We can still have this moment to be together here as a family. So please do go and check out astrologyuniversity.com as well, so that you can be in the loop for more great summits just like this. All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. All right.